Well, joining us now to discuss the scourge of gangsterism in the Western Cape and the country at large is ActionSA MP Dereleen James. Dereleen James wrote and handed a letter to the President in Parliament yesterday during the President's question and answer session. In it, Dereleen pleads with the President to declare a state of emergency under Section 37 of the Constitution in the Cape Flats to address the issue. Dereleen, why a state of emergency?
Because for far too long, we've seen the ministers standing on the Cape Flats. We've seen them coming and making promises. For the past 5 years, I was doing some research earlier on, and it just happened to cross my pages that in 2018, there was an intervention. In 2019, 2020, 2023, 2024, and 2025 in various spaces on the Cape Flats. What were the results? What was the outcome? To date, it was shocking to learn from the minister yesterday when he descended once again on the Cape Flats, and he said, we still don't have a strategy that speaks to addressing the gang violence in this province.
Under it, you're asking the President to do 5 things in the state of emergency that he would declare under Section 37 of the Constitution. One, you're asking for a street-by-street intelligence sweep. You're asking for the deployment of the South African National Defence Force. You're asking for a whole-of-government response coordinated across different departments, bringing in departments like social development. 4, you're asking for a special courts to be set up in the same way it was during the World Cup in 2010 to expedite gang-related cases. And 5, you're asking for the repurpose of CETAs and skill development resources and funds to make sure that young people being rescued from gangs and gangsterism are immediately put into a long-term skills development program that would turn their lives around. Why does the President need to declare a state of emergency to do any of these 5 things? To me, it sounds like he could do any of these 5 things right away.
Yes, but it's been proven that he hasn't been doing it. It's been proven that, yes, we have the National Drug Master Plan that speaks to a multifaceted approach. It speaks to all 21 departments responding to areas that is hard hit by drugs and gangs, and it hasn't been done. The fact of the matter is we need to look back at the past 10 years, not even only 10 years, 3 decades, where various heads of state has descended on the Cape Flats. We have these pieces of legislation and it is just not finding expression on the ground. To date, we have between the 1st and the 10th of September, imagine 40 people being gunned down within 10 days. Surely that justifies for a state of emergency. We had the SANDF deployed during COVID. We had SANDF deployed, I think, when there was the EFF said that they were going to march. We still see all our soldiers on the ground for all of these threats. But yet when human lives are being lost hourly on the Western Cape, nothing is being done. Right now, we need a force multiplier. We need a unit that can come in and stabilize and contain the many killings that is unfolding hourly on the Western Cape. Yesterday, when they were here, the minister, the national commissioner, they had hardly left where they were at in the Western Cape. And hours later, 7 people were shot. I think 4 of the 7 were women shot right in front of their children. If this doesn't warrant at this point, after all this time, after all of these people have descended on the Cape Flats, for the people of the Western Cape to be taken seriously and to be protected, and this is why we are calling for a state of emergency. Because everything else, there's no intention, there's no will from anyone.
It sounds like to me what you're describing is a situation where we know exactly what to do, and we can do it, but what is absent there is the political will. Are you convinced that a state of emergency will miraculously bring about the political will to get any of this done?
Right now, you know what we've tried everything and we're not sure what the outcome will be. But all we are saying that we've seen SANDF deployed. All we are saying is that we have seen various political parties at loggerheads in terms of who needs to do what. Right now, it is time for us to put the people, the families first, and it is time for us to pull out all stops and just try something, because you can see the brazenness in which these gangs are operating on the Cape Flats, shooting and killing daily during broad daylight.
Dereleen, more importantly here is the ask for the deployment of the South African National Defence Force. This would not be the first time that the National Defence Force would be deployed in the Cape Flats to deal with exactly this problem. It seemed to prove inefficient the last time the South African National Defence Force was deployed in the Cape Flats. Violence and gang-related violence and related murders and deaths continued, even under the presence of the South African National Defence Force in the Cape Flats. What would be different this time around?
I think this once again showcases the inability of our leaders in understanding how to address it strategically. You cannot possibly just deploy more boots on the ground. You cannot possibly just deploy SANDF without gathering a certain level of intelligence. And this is why we are saying that deploying boots on the ground is not just going to be sort of an isolated deployment. It needs to be intelligence-driven information. There's enough information from the various police stations that has been gathered, so we are not saying just deploy them and have them walking around aimlessly, because that is what has happened in the past. You deploy people from various other provinces. Right now, I heard the minister saying that we have 400 boots on the ground, 400 boots on the ground without understanding how these gangs operate, 400 boots on the ground without understanding what a pelapos is and a lolly lounge, 400 boots on the ground with actually not even having the know-how on where to start, with vehicles that can hardly move from point A to B, with vehicles that are getting stuck during these operations, without body cams, 400 unprepared boots on the ground.
Yeah.
So we are saying when we deal with this and when we execute and deploy members and a force multiplier, it is important that we have sort of intense briefings that explains the landscape and the climate of the how these gangs are actually operating in these areas, where the drugs are coming from. There's a lot that needs to be done in order to have a successful sort of stabilization period. We are not saying that this is going to yield the results that we want. We are saying stabilize the Western Cape. We know that this is dependent on social development. We know that Department of Education needs to come in. We know that the CETAs needs to come in. We know that this is a socio-economic challenge that we are faced with as a result of unemployment. We know that there are many drivers as to why our communities find themselves in the state that they are in. So we are saying for us just to have peace, for communities to have peace of mind while all the other things are happening, deploy SANDF.
Just very lastly,
that is what we are saying.
A yes or no answer on this, Dereleen, because we are out of time. You know that under Section 37, the President would need the concurrence of Parliament in declaring a state of emergency. Are you convinced that, divided as our body politic is at the moment, that Parliament would be able to get this across the line?
If the killing of a 2-month-old baby does not prompt parliamentarians to make the right decision, then I don't know what will.
Dereleen James, thank you so much for your time. Really do appreciate it. Dereleen is a member of Parliament for ActionSA.